welcome to Barb's Book Spot. We're doing things just a little differently today. Rather than just share one or two books with you, I thought I'd like to share with you the display we currently have up. We have Mighty Girls on display. And I put these books out because all too often I think the books are forgotten because they're not in the fiction picture book section. They're in the biographies, in the informational sections of our Dewey collection, and they're real, true, heroic, wonderful characters. And so often they're left on the shelf. So the first book I'd like to share with you today, just to give you an idea of a few, is Rough Tough Charley. It's by Verla Kay, and the illustrations are by Adam Gustavson. This book was published by Tricycle Press in 2007. Charley was an interesting character because for her whole life, no one knew she was a woman. She was a man, she was an orphan, she started working in a stable, figured out pretty quickly that the only way she would get employment was to pretend she was a boy, went through her whole life as a stagecoach driver, a station master, a farmer, and in the end, they only found out she was a woman on her deathbed. So it's a fascinating character, a fascinating story, and probably she was the first woman ever to vote because she pretended she was a man, signed up, registered, and went ahead and did it in Wyoming. Another great character, and this is a book that was just recently published in 2015, Queen of the Diamond, the Lizzie Murphy story, and it says here she was the first woman to play on both Major League All-Star teams. It's written by Arnold McCully, and she also did the illustrations, and it was published by Farrar, Straus, and Giroux, and that's, like I said, 2015. This Lizzie was as good as her brothers. She practiced with her brothers, and she decided very young that she wanted to make her living playing baseball. And her mother said, "Oh, please don't encourage the girl." But you know what? She wanted to do it. She became kind of a novelty, playing on some minor league teams, and they thought she would be a good draw to get people to come and see the girl player. And so when she first played, and there was a huge crowd to see her, and the paymaster walked right past her and refused to pay her, said, "These men need a job. You're a woman. You can go get married someday." She put her foot down and said, "Then I'm not playing." Well, he didn't want to sacrifice the team, so he paid her, and up to then, she always got paid the same as the guys, and she made her whole career playing baseball, way before anybody else did. This is back, I think she was born in like 1912, so this is from 1918 to maybe 1935 that she played. Different Like Coco. This book was written by Elizabeth Matthews, and it was published by Candlewick in 2007. I'm going to share one of my favorite pictures of this. I love this page. This is Coco Chanel as a young girl. She always had a vivid imagination. And it says here that she always believed she deserved more. She loved to read cheap romance novels and rarely told the truth. She constantly rearranged and romanticized the facts of her life story. She would even tell lies in confession. And I love that about her. At this time, fashion was big and frilly and glorious, and Coco was slim and skinny. She was very poor. She always was in the position where she felt less than everyone else in France. When she got a chance and she could sew, she made her business as a tailor, and she made slim, practical fashions. You did not have to wear a corset, and people eventually flocked to her way of thinking. She made quite a statement. She went from a sort of a tiny poor child with a poor imagination to a fashion icon in a time when women were not really respected in the world of work. Another mighty girl. Oh, let's see. Sonia Sotomayor, A Judge Grows in the Bronx. And this book was written by Jonah, and it was illustrated by Edel, and it's bilingual. So the whole text is given in both Spanish and English. Lovely pictures, lovely story. Judge Sotomayor lived in the Bronx, and she was actually born the same year I was. That was 1954. Very poor, single mother, and her mother worked very hard to put food on the table and provide for her children. And she decided at a young age that she was just going to do the best she could and succeed no matter what. She found out at a young age that she was diabetic, and so her dreams of being a Nancy Drew type detective were kind of dashed. But she started to watch shows on TV like Perry Mason. She saw judges and thought, boy, that's a powerful position. One day I want to do that. She went on to Princeton, where she felt very much less than some of the other girls. She'd never been out of the Bronx much, and the others were all connected and networked, and they had a lot of money, and she never had that, but she persevered. She hung in there, and she went from a dreamer to a survivor to a great leader, one of our Supreme Court justices. This is a story I don't know that very many people understand or have heard. Dolly Madison Saves George Washington, and it was written and illustrated by Don Brown. This was also published in 2009 by Atheneum. It was interesting. Dolly was a farm girl, but when she got married, she married James Madison. She loved people, and she loved parties, and she loved social world and fancy dress, and so she became quite the hostess. She even threw parties for Thomas Jefferson because he didn't have a wife to help him while he was president. When James Madison became president, and she was actually the first lady, she still treated all her guests like family, inviting them all in, and everything was going fine. Everybody loved everybody until the Revolutionary War is upon us, and the men are all going away to battle. Those who were supposed to be guarding the White House took off, and Dolly is left behind. One of the things she loved was this famous portrait of George Washington. She always admired George Washington, and she decided that it must be saved. So I'll show you this picture real briefly. It's this famous portrait that we all know of him. She had some servants help her break the frame and tear it off the wall. She had some citizens hide it away until after the war. And when the war was over, they were able to put the painting back up, and it's in the White House now today. And no one really understands that story or remembers that story. Until this picture book came out, I never had heard of it either. So, Dolly Madison Saves George Washington. A wonderful character in history, and a wonderful way into history for young people. And last but not least, this is a book that was published in 2014. Malala, A Brave Girl from Pakistan. And this book, if you flip it over, is also about Iqbal, a brave boy from Pakistan. Both of these young people were activists, and they were willing to put their life on the line for freedom and for rights. We know that Malala fought for the right for girls to go to school, and she was shot and injured by the Taliban, and actually came back and has now, at age 16, 17, has spoken in front of the UN and in front of world leaders to promote the cause of the right to education for females in the Middle East. Iqbal, just a quick mention, although he's not a mighty girl, worked in the carpet factories as a young boy, and children were tenured out based on their parents' debts to work in carpet factories, and you had to have your child work until your debt was paid off. Once they were freed, he spoke out against child labor, and he actually was killed as a very young man in the course of his speaking out for the rights of children in his country. So Malala, A Brave Girl, was published by Beach Lane Books in 2014, and it was written by Jeanette Winter, and she also did the illustrations. I think it's important to remember that these mighty girls are, and their mighty books as well, are important to share with our students, with our children, and to remember these characters in history, not always the stories that are made up. They're good, but sometimes I think we want that true actual information to share. So, happy reading, everyone.